Now, breaking news coming in, Eskom CEO Brian Molefe has resigned. Molefe quit the power utility from 1st January 2017. He says that the resignation is in interest of good corporate governance. In his statement, he has said that it is in interest of good corporate governance. Molefe added that the resignation is a voluntary decision. Now, ANN7 Assignments Editor joins us live from the newsroom for more. Thank you very much, Ubuntu Williams. Please give us a bit more information on this resignation of Brian Molefe.
Well, Nandi, I can tell you that it's an intensely personal, very emotional letter that Mr. Molefe has written, in which he is saying that he will be stepping down as of the 1st of January. That'll be New Year's Day next year. Out of consideration for good corporate governance at Eskom, he is at pains to emphasize that this has nothing to do with him having been found wrong or having committed wrongdoing in the Public Protector's report, which came out recently. And also, we know that Brian Molefe, has been at Eskom for a little over a year now. And in that time, of course, he's been viewed as having been, his appointment a game changer, because we haven't seen much by way of load shedding, and maintenance programs have been revised and implemented, and they've meant that we've continued to have power. He is also very thankful and pays tribute to the unfailing support that he's had within Eskom itself and those that have worked with him. He is intensely personal and very emotional in his description of the Public Protector's report as having been merely observations, and would know that in that report he was implicated in state capture by virtue of contact he's had with the eldest of the Gupta brothers, who they say exchanged quite a number, of course, about 58 between them. Of course, 49 this, 44 this way, and 14 that way, and him having been placed near the Gupta home. But we also have to remember that I think that dates to around August. But we have to remember that Mr. Molefe had been CEO of Eskom, or at least in an acting position, aside from April of 2015, long before the telephone records of his telephone records were made public. As placing him around August, around Saxonwold, and he's really upset that he could be placed in Saxonwold within the Gupta family's home by virtue of his telephone records and having been in the area. So he is saying that it has to be borne in mind that the Public Protector's report is merely observations, and it does not detract from the fact that he considers himself not to have conducted any wrongdoing whatsoever, and that he is taking this time in the interest of good governance at Eskom. Nandi?
Well, that was our assignments editor, Ubuntu Williams there. We will keep him there as we just go to our phone line. We're joined by Deborah Duba, Chairperson, Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprises. Thank you very much for joining us. This is quite shocking. Did you see this coming at all?
Yes, I did, ma'am. I saw it coming in the sense that we know Brian for a long time. He's a very professional somebody. So anything which will try to taint his image, he wouldn't have taken it as one of those things. He's a very person who's very sensitive and professional in a way.
Now, the Eskom board had backed Molefe fully. What do you think will be done going forward at this point?
Pardon?
I'm saying the Eskom board had backed him fully. What do you think will be done going forward at this point?
Going forward, though, we have not received any information officially, but what I think we need to have them as early as next week, Monday, to understand their way forward. Though we don't dictate to them how they should run their affairs, but as an oversight structure of the parliament, we need to understand and very much be concerned of the latest development regarding to Molefe.
Now, Brian Molefe's loss will be big. He was appointed to rescue Eskom. Your reactions?
Indeed, we are disappointed by the resignation. we were excited when he was appointed, and we saw his deeds immediately after that. He was able to turn around the Eskom in terms of the load shedding and also stabilize the leadership issues in that institution. Now, with his resignation, it really is a huge disappointment, and to not only to us but to the country and the Eskom as well.
Now, what is your assessment of Molefe's tenure as CEO?
My assessment is that he has been a very reputable and professional individual with strong ethics. And with all these allegations in the group thing, we were not convinced that he has done wrong, but because of the reports and all that, the whole cloud has now shifted to actually look into Molefe as an individual from a very close range. But from a distance and from interacting with him since he became the CEO, we saw a professional somebody, we saw an ethical somebody, and we were very much comfortable with how he runs the institution.
Now, that's a very interesting reaction there regarding that. Do you think he has succumbed to political pressure at this point?
Well, I won't say much of the political pressure. Having worked with him in this short space of time, he's a very strong personality. He won't succumb to any political pressure. But I think this has got more to do with his reputation as the CEO of the state-owned enterprises. And I think he has done this in the interest of good governance, so that once the inquiry starts, he's out of the picture. I think, yes, in the main, I think is that.
Well, thank you very much. That was Dipu there on the line, giving us her thoughts on the matter of Brian Molefe, Group Chief Executive of Eskom, resigning today. Now, I will go back to our assignments editor, Ubuntu Williams, who will be joined on the line as well by some of our guests. Ubuntu, now, what do you think are the repercussions for Eskom at this point?
Well, Nandi, obviously by now the board is aware of what's happening, and hopefully they have escalated Mr. Molefe's resignation to the minister. So we should be seeing quite a flurry of activity right now to immediately see who they can put in that position. We must also remember something about Mr. Molefe having the perception of Mr. Molefe in the public, of his image, is quite impeccable. Look, he has a good record as the chairperson of the portfolio committee was saying. He has a very good public record. He's worked for Treasury. He was handpicked from there, and he went to the PIC, Public Investment Corporation, which we know is doing very well, and has got interest and is today, you know, the largest shareholder in the JSE. And also we know that from there he went to Transnet, which he did turn around, and it's been looking good, put on a good footing. Its image and perception in investor spheres has improved. And then subsequently in April of last year, he had to take over the reins at Eskom when things were falling apart. There'd been a succession of CEOs who had battled to put the utility, on the right footing, and he managed to step in and stabilize it to the extent that we have seen, and also give it a good exposure in the market. And we would know, also talking of his image, that at some stage there was a generally good understanding that he might be, in the event that Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan were to leave, the guy would be least sensitive to the markets. Markets wouldn't want, would consider him a reasonable replacement for Minister Pravin Gordhan, for instance. That was only a couple of weeks ago, before the charges were dropped by the NPA against Minister Gordhan. So, he has a very good public image. We know he's quite a fairly emotional fellow too, having been able to step in and stabilize the ship. But also, I understand that on the line we have Khulu Phasiwe from Eskom, and I think if I had a question for him, it would be, what is the board aware? Has a matter been escalated to the minister?
Good afternoon to our listeners and viewers as well. Well, the matter has been escalated to the minister because it's part of the normal process. The minister has to know about this. As a matter of fact, within the next few minutes after 3 o'clock, the minister will issue a statement to that effect. But yes, from our end, we can confirm that Mr. Molefe has tendered his resignation, and this will be with effect from the 1st of January 2017. It has to be added at this point, though, that this is not admitting any wrongdoing on his part. Essentially, what he's saying is that this was the correct decision to take, especially in relation to good corporate governance.
I'm just wondering, Mr. Pasiwe, him saying this and coming up to resign when the board fully supported him, stood behind him. I mean, there was all this support, and then he takes an action like that. What was the board's response? Do they feel disappointed? What about management at Eskom?
Well, both board and management were taken aback by Mr. Molefe's decision, but I'm sure also from his side, Mr. Molefe, it was not an easy decision to take. But remember, some of these things, sometimes we sort of personalize them and look into an individual. But this goes beyond him, because remember, he has family, he has relatives and people who are close to him who are also affected by some of these things that people have been saying in the public domain. So I think it was all of those things having a bearing on him and on the family, and he has decided to take the step that he did.
Well, this going beyond him as an individual and Eskom being the organization, do we know who's going to take over now and captain the ship?
Any days at this stage, we will hear in due course as to who will step in as the replacement. But remember, Mr. Molefe will still be with us until the 31st of December. So I'm sure in due course the board and the Minister of Public Enterprises will make the necessary announcement.
Now, Mr. Molefe has paid tribute to his colleagues who helped him, and I would want to include yourself in that, who have helped him manage Eskom and get it to the level it is at. And I'm just wondering, in that management, do you think that we will still keep the lights on?
Well, Eskom has 47,000 employees, and one of them is leaving, so we still have a bigger number of people who are remaining behind. And to be honest with you, Mr. Molefe was working together with the management team, and that team remains, and the other, I would say, competent staff will still remain at power stations and everywhere to make sure that we keep the lights on.
I just have to ask this one, granted that Eskom, like most entities, state-owned entities, are trying to put forward a very good and positive image towards investors so they don't expose themselves to negative news trends. And I'm wondering in this case whether that worries you that it might affect investor confidence in Eskom.
Well, generally, resignation such as this one, but do obviously have an impact on perceptions, especially market sentiment. But I'm sure in due course, the market will understand as to why he decided to step down, especially for the correct reasons. Because remember, the issues around good corporate governance. Essentially what he wants, among other things, is to give the Commission of Inquiry, once it's established, undivided attention, and also if they need to access anything that relates to him, then they can have unfettered access to those information or equipment that they may want to access. So basically, this is not only for him per se, he was also thinking about the good name of the company and also the issues around good corporate governance.
I'm very happy that you're talking about, the image of the company, and you're talking about good corporate governance. It's a very good example, but I'm sure many South Africans will be shocked by the latest development, as it has shocked the board at Eskom. And what is Eskom saying to ordinary South Africans who are consumers of its output?
Well, our message basically is to say that Eskom is not dependent on individuals. Although obviously we have individuals, but collectively we have 47,000 people within Eskom who are making sure that we keep the lights on. Right now, as I speak to you, we have stability at the board level. We also have stability at the management level. So we have the CEO obviously stepping down, and this is not going to be an abrupt decision for him to leave. He's not leaving today. He still is with us until the 31st of December. So in due course, I'm sure he'll hand over to whoever the board will choose as the interim CEO, and maybe in due course they'll also advertise so that we can have stability at that CEO level.
And of course, if I may just ask, the last one, a general one. You know, we are in Gauteng right now. There are storms battering, citizens, their properties, and obviously Eskom infrastructure. So we're likely to see quite a few outages taking place. How geared is Eskom to deal with this, especially seeing that we have more focus saying we're going to be seeing more of these thunderstorms and rainstorms and flash floods that might affect our infrastructure? How geared are you to deal with this?
Well, we do have our regional operations manager who are overseeing all of these kind of issues. So we have put in place contingency measures to make sure that if there's a need for any one of our people to be dispatched to areas which are affected by this flood, they are able to do so. And this is part of our general operating system. Whenever we have situations such as this one, we do have emergency protocols that we activate, and nothing will change. So today, as I speak to you, all 47,000 people across the nation, some of them obviously will only get to learn about this thing later this evening, but the majority of us are very resilient. We have been through difficult times more than this. As a matter of fact, load shedding was more difficult than I would say a normal resignation, which happens in most companies. So we will stick around to make sure that we keep the lights on and also fulfill our mandate as a company to make sure that we connect our people, those who are not connected to the grid, and also making sure that we keep the economy growing through availability of electricity.